of the 20th century, for any prisoner their worst nightmares would be the one and only place called the Alcatraz prison. A place that earned the name and often referred as the Rock, was considered to be escape-proof and America's strongest prison. This majestic iron jail is situated in the middle of the water, from the San Francisco Bay by 1.25 miles. Originally, constructed as the United States Army military prison, then became the federal prison for the most notorious criminals who caused troubles at the other prisons. What really made this prison to be outstanding is the strong current of the sea water that pulls towards the Alcatraz island. Even the world's greatest swimmers would fear to dive and surf, as the water is ingested with deadly sharks. Moreover, the prison was surrounded by iron fence standing 25 foot tall, topped with sharp blades of wire, and heavily guarded towers were placed strategically at various locations. Prisoners entering Alcatraz would undergo a thorough check before entering into their cells, and they were counted 13 times a day by the guards, barely leaving any choice for the prisoners to do the escape attempt. Prisoners who locked up in this jail were made to work hard throughout the day plowing the field. Interestingly, a former employee left his prison job and became a zookeeper, due to the fact that the prisoners were treated like animals, and even said that 4 years of his working life in this prison was a total waste. The prison inmates had a rough time, where one inmate even committed suicide, and even some others chopped off their fingers by an axe. The Alcatraz prison, the Rock, escape-proof, Hell-catraz, these names lived until it was then when 3 inmates made a successful escape from the prison. The escape crew had 4 persons: Frank Lee Morris, the Anglin brothers and Allen West. Frank Lee Morris, believed to be the mastermind behind this plot, was born in Washington, where he was abandoned by his own father and mother. He was orphanaged at the age of 11, and later involved in several crimes with his late teens. He was arrested multiple times, and started to serve his time in Angola prison. Despite his miserable life, Frank Lee Morris had a remarkable IQ of 133, and ranked in the top 2% of general population in intelligence. It was at this time, he became troublesome to the prison guards and escaped from the Angola prison. Then, he was recaptured a year later, leaving no choice but sent him to the escape-proof Alcatraz prison. The Anglin brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, were born into a family of 13 children in Georgia. They had a style of robbing the banks as a team, and ensured that no one got injured during the crime. In 1958, they got arrested for a bank robbery and sentenced to 20 years in Atlanta prison. Interestingly, it has turned out that all they used was a toy gun in this bank breach. They made repeated failed attempts to escape from the Atlanta prison, leaving no choice but sent them to the Alcatraz prison. And finally, Allen West. Allen West was born in New York, and he was arrested over 20 times in his lifetime. In 1955, he was imprisoned for car theft, in Florida prison, where he tried to escape and failed. Then, he was transferred back to the prison, but this time it was Alcatraz prison. Escape from this Alcatraz prison is nearly impossible. These guys can't just plan and walk out of the front door. What really paved out the way was, in December 1961 they were imprisoned in cells adjacent to each other. An Alcatraz prison in the later years of operation, allowed prisoners to talk quietly, and they even introduced music hours. Frank Lee Morris saw this opportunity and he took it. They planned carefully under the leadership of Frank Lee Morris. Over the following 6 months, they managed to widen the ventilation ducts behind the sink in their cells, using the discarded saw blades and metal spoons smuggled out from the dining hall. They even managed to make out an electric drill from the motor of a vacuum cleaner. This is where Frank Lee Morris's knowledge comes into the play. On top of the music hour, these men slowly chiseled away the ventilation duct without making any noise. And they covered the progress of their holes with painted cardboards. They even made a dummy head with a mixture of soap, toothpaste, toilet paper and concrete dust. To give a realistic appearance to the dummy head, they risked themselves to smuggle out the hairs from the barber shop and paints from the workshop. Over few weeks, they made the hole big enough for them to slip through it. Every night they would cover the dummy head with blankets, and they would slip through the holes to access the unguarded corridor behind the wall. Then, they climbed to the top of the vacant cell block and set up their own workshop. With over 50 stolen raincoats, they made a 6x 14-foot raft, shaped like a boat, and they were carefully stitched by hands of these men. Even the small gaps were sealed by the heat from the steam pipes, and they made paddles for the raft, out of the scrap woods. And the big night finally arrived. On June 11, 1962, the men began their escape by slipping through the holes. Unfortunately, The cement put upon the damaged concrete around the Allen West's ventilation hole had hardened, and Allen was unable to slip through it. By the time he managed to fix it, it was too late for the others, leaving them no choice but to abandon him. The other men from the corridor behind the wall climbed up the ventilation shaft to the roof. As they broke out of the shaft, prison guards heard out a huge noise, but since there was no further sound, they left as it is. Then, from the roof they slid down to the ground through a 15-meter kitchen vent pipe, and then climbed up 2 12-foot barbed wire fences. At a blind spot, where no guard towers can spot them, they started to fill out their raft with air, using a musical instrument called concertina. After 10 p.m., they launched the raft successfully, and departed towards Angel Island. From where, it is said that these men disappeared. The dummy had played its role really well. And only on the next day morning, when the guards came up to wake prisoners from their cells, found the setup, and got shocked to the core. The guards couldn't believe their own eyes, and started out an immediate investigation for the lost prisoners. They found out Allen West was a part of it, and he went on full cooperation with the guards, to avoid charges for his role in the plan. It remained as a mystery, whether these men made it to the shore, or did they drown on their way. In 1979, FBI officially closed the investigation, stating that these men drowned on their way to the shore. But in 2018, when FBI found out a letter, allegedly written by John Anglin, forced them to reopen the case. The letter claimed that, Frank Lee Morris and Clarence Anglin passed away a few years ago, and he was the only member alive out of the 3 escapees. Moreover, he mentioned that he was dying of cancer, and he would turn himself into the prison, if they promise him a medical treatment. When this letter was carefully analyzed for any of its link to John Anglin, it never led to a strong and steady conclusion. The case is currently investigated by the U.S. Marshals, and it will remain open on all 3 escapees until their 100th birthdays. While the FBI claims that these men drowned on their way to the shore, whereas, the U.S. Marshals still doesn't want to give up this case. It still remains as a mystery whether these men made it to the shore or not, and the conclusions can never come to an end.